Hello everyone, I am Salem from Chip Theory Games. Today I'm going to be walking you through the Burncycle tutorial as found in the rulebook. This will be the exact same tutorial, so we'll be even using the same dice results, the same cards, everything in that regard. So if you wanted to follow along directly in the rulebook, there'll be times where I might reference certain cards. You can be able to just check out the images that are listed there if you want a quick reference, but I'll also make sure to try and explain all of the cards that are relevant to the actual gameplay. On top of that, this will actually be including the second part of the tutorial as well, which is not available in the rulebook itself, but will eventually be made available on an online PDF. This takes you through even more turns if you really want an in-depth guide into how to navigate the whole floor of a need chain mission. This tutorial mission will be taking us through the first few turns of the Mega Market Sweep, a need chain mission. We're also going to want to assign a captain for the security detail. We're going to go ahead and use Crucible. For our bot lineup, we're going to have Byte and Access as playing player 1 and player 2 accordingly. And for our command module, we will be using Bit. You can place the captain card and the mission card in the back of the card holder tray for easy access. But for the bot cards, we will want to hold on to them as we're going to be placing them in our bot mats a little bit further on. First, we're going to just grab some of the odds and ends components that we're going to need, including like pegs for players and bots, as well as making sure our card holders and dice are nearly accessible. In the center of your play space, you will want to set up the floor mat. Next to the floor mat, we will go ahead and place the network mat. As we are going up against the Need Chain Corporation, we're going to want to make sure to use the Need Chain Threat card. For this tutorial, we will be using the standard side. Make sure to also grab 2 red beads, one to track the current threat level, and one to track the most recent threat event that has been resolved. Because we're going up against the Need Chain Corporation, the center CEO chip will be represented by Bo Zephyrs. We can go ahead and place the corporation's network strength level die in its according spot, along with 4 network pings. For the network, we know that player 1 is going to be using yellow and player 2 will be using the purple bot mats. So we can go ahead and place those colored dice and pegs in the respective slots on the network. Note that whoever is first player will always be in the top right quadrant of the network, with players 2 through 4 following in a clockwise rotation. Using the floor plan book, we can take a look at what rooms are needed for the floor and how each of those rooms are orientated on the board. Now that we've had the map laid out, we're going to want to populate it with terminal and cache chips. These simply go on any spaces marked with the terminal and cache icons. Okay, and we're also going to want to make sure we get all of the pegs for our bots all associated. So for our command module, you're going to want to make sure to place a peg in each of the slots that are unlocked for the Burncycle. Those are going to be marked with green. And then you're going to want to place the power one at whatever the number is on their bot card. Works a little bit differently from agents. So on agents, you actually start with the power all the way up to 10. We'll have a chance to spend that down to their capacity, but just for the moment, they'll go all the way up to 10. We have our bot cards underneath in our agent mats, and then we have all 3 have their bot chip and their awareness chip just underneath. All right, so now that we got most of the mission set up here, I do want to just quickly bring up a bit of an optional setup thing depending on what your preferences are for tracking things, and that's in regards to our command module. So Bit has an innate ability as a command module that all safe zone doors are permanently unlocked. However, there are some game effects which might have guards go for unlocked doors and things like that, and these are ignored by like the safe zone doors would be ignored by these abilities due to her innate function. So on one hand, you might be thinking like, okay, well then I'll just not put the pegs in there so I don't get confused, so I don't accidentally have guards go try to trigger those. But on the other hand, you might want to have them marked so that you always do remember those doors are indeed unlocked. For the sake of visual clarity and for this tutorial, I am going to go ahead and just place the pegs in there just so that you are always sort of watching and knowing that those are going to be unlocked, and then when we eventually end up inside those rooms, there won't be any kind of confusion as to how we were able to just walk around in. So there we go. So we got those marked there. All right, and now we're going to go on with the rest of the setup that we can sort of make some decisions about. The first one is going to be reserve allotment for our agents. So this is because we are playing with 2 players at the moment. If you're playing with solo, you actually get all 3 reserve allotment slots unlocked for free. If you're playing 3 or 4 player, you do not get any of them unlocked. But in a 2-player game, both agents get to select one to unlock for free. So Byte has 3 utility ones, so she doesn't really have a whole lot of options there. She is just going to go ahead and get a utility one for free. And then access to make sure they have a nice variety, rounded pool of chips in the reserve is going to go ahead and take a tech chip. All right, so now we have to route some power. So our agents have to route power down to their power bank capacity. So Byte here, starting at 10, has quite a bit to spend. So we're going to have 2 go towards her skill Silent Entry. We'll have 2 more go towards a Advanced Die unlock. And then we'll have 2 more after that go towards the 3rd Burncycle slot. And that actually does cost 3, so we're going to need 1 more power from somewhere else. And you can actually split these costs. So we can have access allocate 1 power to that as well. So we have that 3rd slot there. Now Access does need to still spend a little bit more because she has to get down to 8 or less. So we'll have her spend 2 to get an Advanced Die unlock. That does put her below her capacity, so she's now at 7 as opposed to needing to be at 8. But the cost benefit of getting an Advanced Die might be worth that 1 extra power she's essentially missing out on. Okay, so with that out of the way, we can go ahead and now generate our first Burncycle. So the Burncycle is created by you take the Captain chip, and then you take enough General action chips to fully fill out the current Burncycle. So we have 3 slots, so we're going to take the Captain and 2 General, and you are going to put these in the blind draw bag and shuffle them around and then pull them out at random. But for the purposes of this tutorial, we're going to just use what is predetermined in the rulebook. So we're going to go ahead and do General, Captain, and General. Okay, so now we're going to have to determine our starting spaces. And this, of course, is going to influence how easily you can get into the corporation, but also to what chips you're going to get in the team reserve. So all of these little icons here, if you start on those icons, that is going to be a chip added to the team reserve. So we're going to want to try and see if we can't take advantage of that. We'll put Byte on that tech spot there. We'll put Bit on that utility spot there, and Access on that physical spot up there. Okay, so with that, we'll go ahead and generate that team reserve, and we're going to get 1 of each chip, and go ahead and place that by the command module. Now we're going to generate our own personal reserves, which is based on the innate personal reserve and any allotments that you've unlocked. And so we've got a physical and utility for Byte, and a utility and tech for Access. All right, so there we are. And now we are going to have to draw imperatives for our characters as well. So these are like limitations for your agent that restrict what they can maybe do. But if you complete them, you do gain power. So, and if you are following along in the rulebook, you'll have little icons of these attached to it, so you can just always reference that. You don't have to go digging through the cards yourselves. Or if you are still yet to, if you don't have your own copy at the moment, you just want to kind of get a feeling for it, you can use the digital version of the rulebook as well. But I'll try and read these aloud as well to give some context as to what we're dealing with. Okay, so for a Byte, we have the remote jammer, which is the next time your agent takes a terminal action, you must not be on a tech chip in the Burncycle. And for Access, we have Troll Sequence. The next time your agent takes an optimized physical action, you do not get the optimized benefit. All right, so with that all taken care of, we can go ahead and get started with the first turn. Of course, we are doing the Mega Market Sweep mission, so our goal for this first floor is to have one of our bots access a terminal chip and then all get to the safe zones. All right, so we'll start with Byte. We'll start with by routing power if we want to, but since we got a chance to do that from setup, we're going to skip that here. We're going to generate our dice pool, which is you get 1 basic action die for each power you currently have. So we're at 4 power, we get 4 of those, and then 1 advanced or elite die for each of those that you've unlocked. So we've unlocked 1 advanced die, which we are going to get there. Okay, So we'll start with the actions, and that's when we'll jump onto the burn cycle here. So the general chips don't really have any other additional kinds of effects. They don't optimize anything. They don't have any downsides. So we're going to just sort of not have to worry about what actions we're taking in regards to like best optimizing our turn. So we'll start by rolling for some movement because we do want to try and get into this corporation here. So we'll go ahead and take 2 basic action dice and give them a roll. So it looks like we got a 2 and a 0. So 2 is enough for what we need, but we can actually use Byte's innate ability, Tumble Magnet, to get an advantage here. And that's going to let us alter one of the sides of the dice to match a different die that we rolled that same turn. So we can go ahead and physically move this one to another 2. So that's going to be a total of 4. So we're going to move Byte 1, 2 there, and then we can allocate our movement to the command module as well. So we'll have Bit follow suit. So now that we've completed that first action, we'll go ahead and move the tracker to the next chip there. And that is actually going to trigger the burn cycle action chip. And that relates to what captain you're going up against. So we're going up against Crucible. And Crucibles is move each security unit 1 space in the direction they currently face. So that will move this hamster here. And this hamster is the one that has the key card that came underneath it. That is going to ride along with it. And this hamster, or excuse me, that's the hamster. The walker is going to move there. This bulldog in the security room is not going to move. It is up against the wall, and because this is just strictly following the rule as dictated by the captain card, which is move 1 space in the direction they face, it's not going to do anything like rotating or trying to reposition or anything. It's just going to sit there and keep looking at that wall. Okay, so for the rest of this action, we're going to go ahead and take a keypad action so we can try and get into the lobby here. So we'll draw that top card there. All right, so it looks like we're on floor 1, so we're going to have to resolve that first column. It is jammed, which means we cannot try and brute force our way through this lock. So we're going to have to resolve its inputs. Let's see here. Well, we do have a physical chip in our own personal reserve, so we're going to go ahead and use that one there. So we'll go ahead and discard that. This gets discarded as well. And we get to place a little green peg here to mark that it is open. And anytime you successfully complete a keypad action, you do get to take a free movement into the room if you'd like. And we're going to go ahead and do that. All right, so there is a surveillance bead on here, which means we're going to have to surveil it now that we have entered there. So we're going to go ahead and take one of these dice here, give it a roll. And it does look like we got a guard. So we'll just grab a guard that equals the current floor. So we're on floor 1, grab a level 1 guard. And then just make sure its facing is matching the symbol on the mat. All right, so you do have to then immediately take into account awareness. So this one has an awareness stat of 6. Of course, that only refers to the direction it's currently facing. It does have a peripheral awareness, which is all of the other spots around it, and that is going to be half of its base stat. So that's going to be 3, which 1, 2, 3. That is going to spot Byte, except we did purchase an ability here. If you got a chance to sort of take a look and see what that ability does, you might know where I'm going with this, but I'll read silent entry here for you. So we have silent entry. When Byte enters a room, she may treat the first space she moves onto in the room as a hiding spot until she moves off of it. So we can actually treat this spot as a hiding spot, which is going to protect us from getting spotted from that hamster, which is really nice. All right, so we have completed our second action. We'll move on to the third action. And since our main goal is to get to those terminals and take a terminal action, we're going to try and roll for some more movement here to get to that spot. So let's go ahead and roll the rest of our dice. Important to note that any dice in your pool that you don't use by the end of your turn is returned to the supply. So if you know you don't have any other use for it, you might as well just go ahead and roll everything you got. All right. So we got a 3, a 2, and a 1. We can go ahead and use Tumble Magnet once again to up that 1 to a 2. It is important, since we are physically actually moving the side of the die face, we can't have that 2 be turned into a 3, for example, because the 3 only exists on the advanced die. So we're going to have 7 movement there. So let's go ahead and move Byte here first. We'll have her move on the outside here to try and avoid the awareness of that hamster. So we got 1, 2, 3, 4. Now this normally would be in the awareness because of the 1, 2, 3, but it is also a hiding spot as well. So we're going to still stay undetected. All right, so we spent 4 there, so we have 3 more to spend here. So we'll move bit here, 1, 2. Now that is going to get detected because bit does not have silent entry. And then 3. And this is the last place that was in the awareness range because we have 1, 2, 3, and this is 4, so that does not extend to there. So that awareness range is going to just stay right by the door. All right, so that actually concludes the action part of Byte's turn, and we're going to hop on the network. Network does use the burn cycle as well, so that go ahead and restart that back to the beginning. For these earlier turns, though, it's not the most dynamic of movement, but once we start filling the burn cycle with specialized action chips, that's where you really get to see how many options you get for movement. Because the general and captain chips are only going to let us move our IP 1 node. So we do have the general chip, so we're going to just move there. And then next we have the captain chip, so we're just going to move 1 more. Quick note on that too, the captain chip only triggers its effect during the action part of your phase, so we don't have to worry about that. And then we have 1 more general chip, so we'll just move to there. Now we did hit a hub. All the hubs grant different rewards depending on what layer you're on. The layer 1 hubs, though, are going to increase our network level. So we'll go ahead and do that. All right, we do have another chance to route power if we want to, but since we really didn't gain any power, we don't have to. We're going to go ahead and forego that option. And then lastly, we're going to have to degrade the burn cycle. So we take the burn cycle die and give it a roll. Looks like we did get a 4. So there's actually no chip in the 4th slot. Anytime that happens, or if the chip is already degraded, it does keep moving until the next available chip, including cycling around. So it's just going to loop back and hit 1, and chip 1 will be degraded. All right, so now we can move on to Access's turn here. So looking at the burn cycle, because we probably want Access to make sure she gets full value out of all of those slots, we're going to go ahead and take a free action before the rest of our turn here to alter the burn cycle. So we'll take this physical chip from the team reserve, just go ahead and swap that into the burn cycle, and then the general chip just gets discarded. All right, so we could, of course, route power if we want to, but I think we're looking pretty good on that. We'll go ahead and build our dice pool. So we are at 7 power, so we actually get 7 basic action dice and 1 advanced die. All right, now it is important to note that we do have that imperative, which is going to be affecting our optimized physical actions. So for this first action, we're going to go ahead and take a movement action. So it would normally be optimized, but because of troll sequence, it will not be. Because we only really need to get 1 space to make sure we get to that doorway to enter in the corporation here, we're going to roll 2 basic action dice, because that way, even if we roll 2 misses, we'll still combine them into 1 AP. So let's go ahead and give that a roll. And that actually gives us exactly what we need. So we can go ahead and grab that blank there and put it back in our dice pool. And then resolve the 1 to move Access down 1 spot. And because we just took a optimized physical action but not actually gaining the benefit from it, we can go ahead and redeem our reward for troll sequence. So this does get discarded, and we're going to gain 1 power. All right, and that'll progress, and now we will trigger the burn cycle action effect once again. So these will all move 1 space, and then both the hamster and the bulldog are not going to move because they are still facing the walls. For the next action here, we're going to go ahead and take a keypad action so we can get into the building. And it looks like we do have the option to brute force this one if we wanted, or the other alternative is to roll the keypad die. And so this will give us a different result that we'll have to resolve, which will tell us how we can actually open the door. Sometimes these even just let you freely unlock it, so might be lucky. All right, so it looks like we got the tech chip result. We do actually have one of those in our reserve, so we're going to go ahead and discard that to open the door. And we will go ahead and take that free movement inward as well. Now, of course, we are in the awareness range of that hamster, so we are going to get spotted here, but we're hoping we can try and make a mad dash past him. Okay, so for our last action, we're going to go ahead and roll for movement, and we might as well just roll all of our dice since our turn's about to be over here pretty soon. So that's going to be 6 basic action dice and 1 advanced die. looks like we got a 2, 3 ones, and 3 blanks. So we can go ahead and convert 2 of those blanks into 1 more AP, and that last one will, of course, be returned to our dice pool. All right, so let's try and move access. It is important to note that hamster has a skill called Grapple 1. Effectively what that does, it's like a magnetic pull. When you're adjacent to it, you have to spend an additional action point to move away from it. So that is going to hurt how far we can go with this. All right, so let's move here. 1, 2. Now Grapple's going to trigger. So 3, 4, 5, 6. Now the furthest that awareness range is going to extend is 1, 2, 3. So our awareness chip will remain right there. All right, so that concludes our actions. We'll hop on over to the network. All right, so now as we hop onto the network, we'll get a chance to see how some of the specialized action chips can work. So the first chip in the burn cycle is a physical one. So when you have those chips, you'll actually get to keep moving your IP until you reach a node that matches it. So it would be a physical action node. Reach one of these hubs, or reach an enemy ping, in which case you would resolve a boot. So we'll actually just get to go all the way up to there for the first movement, and that actually is going to increase our network level die, sort of like with what Byte did earlier. Then we have a captain chip, so that just lets us move 1. We'll go ahead and move inward 1. So anytime there's these transfer points, you can choose to transfer in or out, though you can only ever transfer once per movement. So on a chip in the burn cycle, effectively, you can only transfer once with it. And then we will go ahead and move 1 more for that general chip. Okay, so now we are done with the network. If we're looking kind of ahead here, it looks like Byte is going to be accessing a terminal on her next turn, and that's going to complete our objective for this floor. That actually grants power to all agents, and if you look at the mission card, that is going to grant 3 power. So access is at 8 power, which means if she were to get 3 power next turn, she would effectively miss out on one of those because it physically can't go higher than 10. So we'll go ahead and spend some of that here. We're going to go ahead and purchase her repair ability. It doesn't need it at the moment, but it's a good skill to have in case of emergencies, especially because if the command module ever gets low, you can then use it to keep the command module nice and healthy. All right, and with that, we'll go ahead and degrade the burn cycle here. And we got a 3. So that's going to be the last chip there. And with that, we will then transfer into the security turn. So security, the corporation turn starts with security unit activation. It would be anybody who is being pursued first. So that's going to be guards that have a detected bot in their current awareness range. So they actually have direct eyes on them. Fortunately, we don't have anybody in that situation, so it's going to move to investigation, which is where guards will investigate the closest awareness chip. So we'll go ahead and start with access here. So the closest one is this hamster up here. So that hamster is going to move 1 and then 2. Of course, in that process, it is going to redetect access because it's getting closer, so its awareness range is going to be able to pick up that access is actually right there. Once it is moved, however, they do flip, and same with awareness chips. They'll flip over to mark that they have already been investigated, and so nobody else is going to be investigating that spot. Okay, so next we have the hamster here to try and detect bits awareness. Now, there is 2 equidistant routes we could choose to take it. So anytime they'll always take the shortest route unless there are multiple routes, in which case then you choose how it moves. So we'll have the hamster move 1, 2, and then it is going to rotate because this is where it was trying to get to. Of course, in that whole process of moving, it is going to sort of see where bit is and then redetect her. So those, of course, will then flip. And then now there are no more awareness chips on the board, so we'll move to patrol, and that is going to be any guards in the hallways are going to just sort of patrol as dictated by their chip. So we have the walker here, which has the perimeter patrol. It's going to sort of move counterclockwise all the way around the edge of the hallway. So we'll have it move 1, 2, 3, rotate, and then 4. We could flip it there to mark that it is patrolled, but since that is the last unit that will be moving here, because that bulldog is not going to patrol since it is in a room, we can just leave it there and go ahead and flip everything else over. All right, so with security units activated, we can now activate the pings. There aren't actually any pings on the network at the moment, and if that's the case, then the corporation simply pings the network once, and that is going to hit that hub there. That's where all pings come into play, and because it hit one of those nodes, it's actually going to trigger rolling the ping die. So we'll take that and give it a roll. And what that result does is it's going to increase the network power level. So that's this die here, and that is going to tick up to 2. All right, once that is done, that then moves to just advancing threat. The advanced threat part of this, as well as advancing threat from rebooting a Burncycle, is always going to be based on player count. So we have 2 players here, so we'll increase threat by 2. All right, so now jumping into Byte's next turn here, we'll go ahead and start by building our dice pool. So we have 4 basic action dice and 1 advanced. And let's see, all right, moving into the action phase. Well, our first chip in there is a physical chip, so we can actually get an optimized physical move action without even rolling anything. So we might want to get Bit a little bit further away from that hamster there. So we're going to go ahead and do that. We get the +2 action points, so we're not even going to roll anything. We'll move Bit 1 space there. And because that store is locked, we can't move her a little bit further, but that's okay. All right, so that then moves to the next one here, and that is going to, once again, trigger the captain effect. So this hamster will move 1, Walker will move 1, and this other hamster will move 1 as well. Now, this is just a movement. It's not a full activation, so they're not going to have a chance to attack. So access is still safe for the time being there. All right, so for this next one, well, since our objective is that we do need to access a terminal, we might as well go ahead and do that. And it's okay that it's unoptimized, especially because that's going to satisfy our imperative. So we're actually going to benefit from taking this now. So we'll go ahead and draw a terminal card here. Once again, all of the cards are going to be listed in the rulebook. So if you just want to reference that. But it looks like we can decrease the CEO's network level by 1, place our awareness chip on either side of a door of our choice, or unlock a door of our choice. Well, seeing how access is about to get cornered there, we might want to go ahead and open up the equipment room there so she has a nice, easy escape. So we're going to go ahead and choose that option. So you do have to choose the option before you actually roll dice. And we need 3 action points in order to get it. All right, so choosing to roll 1 advanced die and 2 basic here. It looks like we got 4, so we're actually going to not have to worry about using Tumble Magnet here. Okay, so we are able to complete this option here. So we're going to go ahead and unlock a door of our choice. Of course, we're going to go ahead and unlock the one by access. So we'll grab one of these pegs and place it there. Now, that is going to, because we took a terminal action and we were not on a tech chip, we're going to complete our imperative. So we gain 1 power from that. And then because we completed this floor's objective, both agents gain 3 power. So access is going to go up to 10, and then Byte is going to get 3 as well, up to 8. All right, now before we progress the Burncycle tracker, because that would end our action phase since that last one is degraded, we're actually going to go ahead and swap it with this utility chip. So that is a free action. We can choose to do that now. And we'll get 1 more action. And with that, we'll actually take an optimized keypad action to try and get Bit out of the lobby and into the hallways. Okay, so it looks like we got the result. It's asking for a tech chip, or of course we could brute force it. But because we're taking this optimized, we can actually bypass any one requirement for the keypad. So it's requiring just 1 input. We can bypass that one and actually open it for free. So I'll discard that, grab a peg, mark it as unlocked, and then we will have Bit take that free movement out into the hallway. Quick note on doors and awareness. Doors sort of function the same as walls when it comes to awareness. Guards can't see through them, with the exception of them being currently in use. So it essentially sees you open the door and move through it. In that context, the awareness range will extend by 1 into that space, only a maximum of 1, but it will only do so if its awareness range would already go that far. So this hamster can definitely see Bit, but if this hamster were to have an awareness range of 2, for example, it would not be able to see on the other side of the door, so your awareness chip would remain inside the lobby. So it does see bit go through there. And so that concludes the last action, so we can go ahead and hop on the network. So as we hop onto the network here, the first chip in the burn cycle is a physical chip, so we'll just move one spot there. The next one is the captain chip, which allows us to move one, so we'll just move one up into there. And the next one is a utility, so we could go all the way and hop over access to reach that hub. Alternatively, we can choose to transfer in there. So we're going to do that and stop on that hub, and that one actually grants us 1 power. So we are now up to 9 power for Byte. All right, so we concluded the network. We're going to have to route some power here, though, because we're well above our capacity. So let's see, what shall we spend this power on? We're going to go ahead and first spend 1 power to purchase the push upgrade. So push allows you to actually spend additional action points to move guards out of the way. It's really helpful in case you're ever worried about getting cornered or trapped, and as pretty much now our main objective is to simply get to those safe zones, we want to make sure we don't end up getting trapped where we can't get out of. With the other power, we do still have a bit more to spend. We're going to spend 2 power to purchase another advanced die. And we actually can't purchase another one of those at the moment because Byte is currently at her max capacity of 2 advanced dice. However, we can actually spend 2 power to instead convert one of those dice into an elite die. All right, and we are at our capacity now, so we are good. We don't have to worry about spending any more power. Lastly, we're going to go ahead and degrade the burn cycle. And it looks like we got a 1, so we are going to have to degrade that physical action chip at the start. All right, we'll pass it back over to Access here. So Access, looking at what she's got here, she does have 10 power. She probably doesn't need that many dice. So we'll go ahead and route power at the start to purchase IP Spoof. And this is going to help her out a lot on the network. So we'll grab one of those pegs there and get IP Spoof. All right, and so before we jump into the action phase, Access does still want to make sure to get full value out of the burn cycle. So we're going to take that tech chip that's still in the team reserve and swap it in for the first slot there. So for her first action, we'll take a optimized network card action. So we're going to draw a network card, and we got the cookies one. So slot that there. Okay, and because we took an optimized network card action, we actually get to then, as the bonus effect, take a unoptimized additional action, in which case we're going to go for movement. So I do want to get my dice pool generated here. Okay, so we have our dice pool of 8 basic action dice and 1 advanced die. We are going to go ahead and roll for movement here. So we're going to go ahead and roll, well, because we want to really make sure to make a lot of distance and get in that equipment room and get bit moving as well. We're actually going to go ahead and roll all 9 of these dice here. All right, so it looks like we got 2 2s, 4 1s, and 3 blanks. So if we go ahead and convert 2 of those blanks into another 1 AP, it looks like we can get a total of 9. All right, so let's go ahead and first get Access out of there. So of course we do have to worry about that grapple once again. So we'll have to forfeit 1 AP there. So 1, 2, 3, and it does still see us move in there. 4, that'll stay there. We'll pick this up, and let's see what we get for the equipment. We got ourselves a battery pack. All right, so this one does come with a die as well. So it has a little number on there, so we'll grab the matching die from the supply and place that in our inventory. And this will get discarded. Okay, so we did just a recap. We spent 1 there, 2 there, 3, 4. So we'll go ahead and spend 5, and we have 4 left here. We'll go ahead and use that all on bit. So move bit 1, 2, 3, 4. So bit's awareness is going to be able to stay right there. All right, so we went ahead and spent all 9 action points, and we'll go ahead and progress to the next spot in the burn cycle. That's going to, of course, trigger all of the guard movements again. That, and that. Okay, and so for this next action, we're going to go ahead and draw another network card here, because perhaps we can get some value by using it, IP spoofing on the network. Okay, it looks like we got ourselves Shipping Manifest. Ooh, this one actually sounds pretty good for its normal effect, which is draw 2 equipment cards and choose to keep 1. So we might actually maybe try and just use that to its intended purposes instead of just IP spoofing. Okay, so we did that for that action. We'll move now to the final action, in which case we can take, we can go ahead and take an optimized keypad action here if we want to try and get into that utility room. All right, looks like this one is asking us for a physical action chip and an alert. And so alert is going to cause Access's awareness to be placed on top of her. Well, we get to bypass one of those, but we don't have a physical action chip, so we pretty much have to choose that one as the one to bypass, which means we're going to have to resolve that alert. So that awareness chip will be placed now on top of her. And then this will go ahead and get discarded because we've unlocked it. And we are going to take that free movement into the utility room. The awareness chip will remain behind us. So let's go ahead and roll that surveillance die. And it looks like we got the side for an imperative. Since we did already complete our imperative, we can still draw a new one. If we did still have it, though, this effect would be ignored. All right, we got fast fingers. The next time your agent collects a cache during a movement action, you may not take any further actions that turn. So something to keep in mind if we want to try and get more equipment. Okay, so with that concluded, that is the last of our actions, so we can go ahead and hop on the network here. All right, so to start, we have a tech chip as the first one, so let's actually go ahead and move us to that spot there. Hitting any of the layer 2 nodes is actually going to decrease threat by 1. And then next we have a captain chip, so that's going to move us 1. And then we have a utility chip, so we'll actually go ahead and move 1 more. And now we're going to be able to go ahead and cash in on shipping manifest because it requires us to be on a layer 2 utility node in order to get its effect. So we'll discard that, and then we'll draw 2 pieces of equipment and choose to keep 1. We got ourselves a key and a terminal bypass. Terminal bypass is a really helpful card regarding terminals. However, because Access already has multi-use commando as her innate, might not need it as much. So we're going to go ahead and take that key instead. So the key equipment card gets discarded when you resolve it, and then you gain a key chip from the supply. Just go ahead and place that on your bot mat. All right, and the last part, we're going to go ahead and discard, as a free action, we're going to discard a network card to trigger IP spoof. So we'll swap spots with a ping on the network. We're going to go ahead and swap spots with that one right there on the core, because that's going to count as hitting the core, in which case we gain the benefit from all 3 network hubs. So we'll increase our network level by 1, we'll decrease threat now back down to 0, and we'll gain 1 power. That does also cause us to get booted back to our access point. All right, so we are now done with the network. I will have to route power here because I'm over my capacity. I'll go ahead and route 2 more power to get an advanced die upgrade. All right, and lastly, we'll go ahead and roll the Burncycle die here. Looks like we got a 2, which is good news because we can go ahead and degrade that pesky captain chip, so no more free movement for those guards, which I'm okay with that. All right, so now we'll go ahead and transition to the corporation turn. So once again, we would check and make sure that there is nobody that needs to be pursued. It looks like we don't have to, so we can jump right into investigation. So we'll go ahead and get Access's chip here investigated first. Now, it looks like both the hamster and the walker are equal distant to the awareness chip, so we could actually choose which one we want to have investigate. This is where you might think, like, all right, which one is a bigger concern in the hallways? Which one is a little bit easier to deal with? A number of factors that you can sort of consider. And, you know, because the hamster more or less just moves in a straight line, doesn't move nearly as far, that one might be a good choice to leave in the hallway. So let's go ahead and move the walker here and see what happens. So we'll move the walker 1, 2, 3, 4. Ooh, okay, so here's another little interesting thing to note when you're choosing what guards to move. So that walker has a skill called Drain. What happens when any bot ends up adjacent to a guard with Drain, they have to discard a chip from their reserve. So if that's the command module, that'll come from the team reserve, personal reserves from the agents. Additionally, adjacency is always counted through doors, regardless of they're unlocked or locked, for security units. So that drain is indeed going to trigger here, even though it doesn't detect access. So Access's awareness chip is then removed and placed back on her bot mat, and she is going to have to discard this utility chip. So that's a factor where, looking a little bit further ahead, you might realize, like, okay, well, even if we might have determined the hamster was easier to deal with in the hallways, that walker, ending up choosing to go with the walker, had its own different side effect. Good news, though, doesn't still detect Access, so Access is still safe for the time being. All right, so that will then flip. Next one, we have the hamster here. It's going to move towards Bit and clear that and flip. And because Bit is all the way up here, that is outside the peripheral awareness of the hamster. So Bit is not going to get redetected. And lastly, we'll go ahead and do patrols, which is just this one hamster here. It's going to move 2 spots in a straight line and then rotate to plan for its next patrol. We could go ahead and flip it, but we are all done here. So we'll go ahead and flip everything else back over. All right, we'll go ahead and transition now to the network. So because there is now a ping in play, it is not going to just freely add a ping. So we're going to move this one. Pings are always going to activate on the outside and then move in. And then they move 3 spots unless they hit another ping or a IP, in which case a boot would be resolved, or a hub. So it's going to move 1, 2, 3, and stop on that hub. So we count on how many hubs were reached. We hit the 1, so we'll go ahead and roll the ping die here. And it looks like we got the result that is going to add another ping to the core. So we'll just take a ping from the supply. Now, because even though that's hitting that hub, this is after that part of the network phase where we counted how many hubs were reached. So we don't have to worry about that triggering an additional ping die. So we are good on that. Okay, and then we'll go ahead and advance threat, and that'll advance by 2. Okay, so that concludes the walkthrough of the tutorial as dictated in the rulebook. So if you wanted to just take it from here and continue out the mission on your own, or take what you've learned and apply it to a new mission. Alternatively, we will actually be providing the rest of this tutorial on an online PDF in the near future. And that will actually dictate how you can take this and go through the entire rest of this floor. I will be going over the rest of that now, so even if you don't have access to that PDF at the moment, you can still watch this and get a feel for how the rest of the tutorial in its full entirety will play out. And so we'll go ahead and just jump right into that. All right, so we can go ahead and jump into Byte's next turn here. We'll start by getting her dice pool. So we got 4 basic, 1 advanced, 1 elite. All right, so well, our primary objective now is to get to those safe zones. However, threat's looking pretty good at the moment, so we may want to try to get Bit into the storage room there, see if we can't get some of those extra goodies to be found. First and foremost, though, let's get Byte out of that lobby. So we're going to go ahead and roll for some movement here, but because we are on a tech chip, we might as well take an optimized network card action. All right, looks like we got ourselves our network card shift guard schedule, so we'll see if we can't maybe use that. And then let's go ahead and roll for some movement. Okay, so we'll go ahead and roll 4 basic action dice for the movement here. All right, so it looks like, well, quite a few blanks there. All right, so we can go ahead and actually use Tumble Magnet to up one of those blanks to another 1, and then we'll go ahead and combine the 2 blanks into an additional 1. So we got 3 points there. So we'll go ahead and move Byte 2, and let's go ahead and move Bit 1 in that direction. Okay, so before we move the Burncycle tracker, we're going to take a free action to swap that degraded captain chip for another utility from the team reserve. And with that, we'll take a keypad action here, and it's going to be optimized. Okay, well, not entirely feeling taking an alert because that hamster is just outside, and we don't have a tech chip to use, so even bypassing one of those options isn't really going to help us here. So we're going to try and brute force it. So we do still have the advanced and elite die here, so I'm going to give those a roll. Looks like we got a 2 with a reroll icon and a 1. We could use that reroll to reroll the advanced die, but we can just go ahead and use Tumble Magnet once again here to up that 1 to a 2. And that brings us to 4, which is just what we need. So we successfully brute forced the lock, so we'll go ahead and unlock the door there. And we are not going to take that free movement out to the hallway because that hamster is just outside. Okay, so for the final action here, we don't have any more dice, so we're not going to worry about trying to get anywhere. We're going to just go ahead and take a network card. And we got ourselves source code. Ooh, this one allows us to roll an advanced action die from the supply and gain power equal to the rolled result. So that might be really useful to try and get some extra power. So speaking of, we'll go ahead and hop on the network. So the first chip in the cycle is a tech chip. So we're just going to go ahead and move to there, and then we have a utility, so we'll move to there. And then we have one more utility. Now we have to try and get to a level 2 utility, which we can actually do if we go all the way to here, transfer out, and then end up there. So we'll go ahead and cash that chip in and roll an advanced die to get some power. And we got ourselves a 2, so we go ahead and get up to 6. The other network card that we drew as well, we weren't able to use, so these are actually both going to get discarded. All right, and so that concludes our network. We're going to have to route some power because we are above our capacity. Let's go ahead and purchase another advanced die. All right, and lastly, we'll go ahead and roll for the burn cycle. Looks like we got a 5, so that is going to once again cycle back around and degrade that first chip in the burn cycle. Okay, so now we're going to transfer over to access. So, well, we want to still try and see if we can't get bit into that storage room. So, well, let's go ahead and start by building our dice pool. So we've got 7 basic dice and 2 advanced. And we're going to go ahead and just roll 5 basic for some of that movement. We don't have too far to go. Okay, looks like we got ourselves 2, some 1s, and a couple blanks. So moving those together, we'll get a total of 5. Well, first of all, let's get access just out of the way there and put her on that terminal chip. Maybe we can make use out of multi-use command. And then let's go ahead and move bit 1, 2, 3, 4. So that would have been there on the burn cycle. So for our final action on this turn, we could use the optimized utility action to open up the storage room, but I think we might be able to get some value from accessing that terminal due to multi-use command. So let's go ahead and give that a go. So we'll take a terminal action. We have a few different options here. We can add any chip from the supply to your reserve, draw a mod card, or place your awareness chip on either side of a door of your choice. That might actually be really good because we can get that hamster out of the hallway to help Byte out there. But the thing is, we do have to choose a different option, and then we'll get that bottom option for free due to multi-use command. So let's try and get a chip from the supply added to our reserve. So we need 4 action points for that. So we're going to go ahead and roll. Well, we'll roll the rest of our dice here since this is our last action anyway. So that's 2 advanced and 2 basic. Looks like we got 3 2s and a blank there, which is totally fine. We do not need that blank. We got more than enough with those 2s. So we're going to go ahead and grab a physical chip from the supply and add it to our reserve. Additionally, because we have multi-use command, we're going to get the effect of that bottom one for free. And we're going to go ahead and place our awareness chip just right inside there. So that's going to draw the hamster into the lobby, which of course will spot Byte, but Byte's planning on booking it out of there anyway. So before we hop on the network here, I'm thinking we can actually use this physical chip for some nice value. So we're going to go ahead and swap that in with the degraded tech chip and go ahead and hop on the network. So with that first spot being a physical chip, we can actually go ahead and get to that hub there in one movement. Now we have a utility. We'll transfer into there, and then for the last utility, we'll hit there. And we'll actually get to decrease threat by 1. All right, and then we'll end it by rolling the burn cycle die. And it looks like we got a question mark. That's actually going to let us choose which one we want to degrade, and we'll just go ahead and degrade that last one there. So we'll go ahead and transfer then to the securities turn. Once again, we don't have anybody actively being pursued, so we'll just jump right into investigation. It looks like it's just going to be access here. So that hamster is the closest. The hamster is going to move 1 and then 2. Of course, by doing so, it's going to clear this, and it is going to spot Byte, but that's okay. Byte is going to make it just a beeline right to that elevator. All right, and so that would flip, but we actually don't have anybody patrolling, so we can just leave it. This hamster would normally patrol, but it's sort of stuck. It only moves in a straight line, so we would just keep moving back and forth in that one spot. So it's actually going to just not move at all. So with that, we can just go right ahead into ping activation. So pings are going to start from the outside in. So this one is going to go first. So we got 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. Now they didn't actually hit any hubs. Anytime that happens, all pings automatically transfer out if there is a spot to do so. And they actually both have a spot they can transfer out. All right, lastly, we'll go ahead and increase threat by player count. All right, so starting Byte's turn here, we'll go ahead and generate our dice pool. So we got 4 basic, 2 advanced, and 1 elite. All right, so now going onto the burn cycle. Well, the first one is optimized movement. So we're going to go ahead and take an optimized move action to try and get to that elevator here. So let's go ahead and we're going to roll 1 of our advanced dice and 4 of our basic dice. All right, so it looks like here we do have an opportunity to use Tumble Magnet on one of those dice, but it looks like we got 6 AP with just what we've rolled, and we're going to get 2 from the optimization, and that actually gets us exactly where we want to go. So instead of using Tumble Magnet, we're going to just take that die back into our pool. All right, so with the 6 plus 2 additional, we have 8 movement here. So we're going to move 1 out of there, and that is going to follow us because of the peripheral awareness. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So all the way into that back corner of the service elevator is going to keep the elevator nice and open, so we don't have to worry about any of our bots crowding. So if Bit has to make a quick getaway, that spot is going to be nice and open. And then we're going to move on to the next one here. Well, since we do still want to try and get Bit into that storage room, let's take a optimized keypad action. All right, it looks like we're going to need to have a physical and a shock. Well, we don't have a physical, and I mean, a shock wouldn't be the worst thing, but I think we can try and brute force it. We do still have our elite die to roll. So let's go ahead and roll all 3 of our remaining dice here. So sadly, we didn't get the 4 AP we need, and sadly, because Bit is the one taking this action and not Byte, we can't use Tumble Magnet. The good news is, though, the elite die got a reroll icon, so we can actually go ahead and re-roll that basic die if we want to, because that has the best chance of getting the additional 1 point we need. So let's give that a re-roll, and it looks like that does it. We got the 4 we needed, which is good news. Let's go ahead and get in that storage room. And we're going to go ahead and take that free movement into the room there. So we'll have to surveil it. So let's roll the surveillance die. And sadly, it looks like we got the lock icon. That is actually going to remove that open peg that we just got. So sadly, it looks like this little detour into the storage room is not going as well as we hoped. But that's okay. We can still make this work. All right, so that is the last action for that turn. So we're going to hop on the network here. So first thing we're going to do is just use that physical to move 1 spot onto the hub there, and that's going to reduce threat by 1. And then we have the utility chip, and we can actually use that to go all the way, transfer there, keep going to gain some power. So we're going to up our power up to 5. Okay, so because we are over our capacity, we're going to have to spend some. We're going to go ahead and spend 1 power to purchase swap on our command module, because if she ever does get cornered or trapped, even by like us, if we block her, her having that swap is going to be really nice. She can just swap places with us. All right, so we're going to go ahead and degrade the burn cycle here. All right, so it looks like the result we got is going to force that physical action chip to get degraded. So go ahead and flip that. So all we have left is that 1 utility chip. All right, and now moving on to Access's turn here. Well, Access could use that turn to maybe try and resolve her Fast Fingers imperative, but looking at the network, it looks like that 1 ping might be actually getting pretty close to banning access from the network, which is definitely no good. So we're going to actually try an IP spoof here. So we'll go to the action phase and just draw a network card that we're going to try and use to IP spoof. All right, we got Security Room Override, which is a pretty good card in its own right, but I think we might get better value by using it to spoof. So as we hop on to the network here, first thing we're going to do is we're just going to immediately use this to spoof. So we'll go ahead and discard that to swap with that one ping on the outer layer there. And then with that utility chip, we'll just move 1 to get to 5 network level. All right. Now, before we end our turn here, if we look at the burn cycle, it's not looking too good. So we're probably going to have to reboot here on Byte's turn. Looking at the threat and how the threat's going to increase. The threat's going to increase from the security, the corporation turn, and then also from rebooting. So it's actually going to go up by, let's see, 4 points there at minimum, which that is likely going to be triggering remote spin down, which actually deactivates the slot in the first slot in the burn cycle. So I think it's actually going to be a good call to preemptively purchase that 4th slot so that when the first one gets degraded, we still have 3 to work with. So Access is going to go ahead and spend 2 power here, and then we're going to have Bit spend 1 power for the total of 3 to purchase that last slot. So that does technically get one of these general action chips, immediately populates it, but we're probably not going to end up using it at all. Okay, so now we're going to go ahead and degrade the burn cycle here. So go ahead and give that a roll. And it looks like we did get a 2, so we're going to go ahead and degrade that last chip there. So once again, there is still that general one, but we're probably not going to be using that. All right, and we'll transfer to the security's turn. All right, so we'll start with guard activation, which the only awareness chip is currently Byte, and that's going to be this hamster moving towards it. So the hamster's just going to move 1, 2, and rotate to look in that direction. And that's it for the guards. All right, so now we're going to hop onto the network here to activate pings. We're going to start with the outer layer ones first. This one's going to move 1, 2, 3. And then this one will move 1, 2, 3. Now we'll actually resolve a boot with Access's IP there. The corporation is going to win ties with the exception of a 6v6. So that is actually going to boot. Of course, because they succeeded in the boot, their own power level, though, is going to go down. And then Byte is going to become detected. So we actually do have to take Byte's awareness chip, which is already in play here, but we're going to move it, transfer it over to where she is there. All right, and so they did hit the 1 hub there, so we're going to have to roll that ping die once. And it looks like we're going to have to advance threat by 1. All right, and now after that, threat advances normally, and that's going to be by 2. And that is actually going to activate activity tracking. And what that says is the CEO adds 2 pings to the core, then activate all pings. So we'll add a ping here. And then because the one in the core is occupied, it's going to just move to the next available one. Now we're going to have to activate all of those pings once again. So we'll start with the outer one. 1, 2. It's going to stop because it hits the hub. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2. And it's going to stop because it's blocked. 1, 2. Now we count how many hubs were reached. It's just the 1. So we're going to go ahead and roll that ping die once again. And we got the side that adds a ping and all pings transfer if they're able. Fortunately, we're already at our maximum. There's no more pings in the supply, so we don't have to add anything. And then this one is the only one that can transfer. This one would transfer, but it is currently blocked. Okay, so that ends the security's turn, and we can jump back over to our agents here. So with Byte looking at the burn cycle, there's only just that 1 general action chip. So we're going to probably want to do a reboot. So immediately before her turn, you can decide to trigger a burn cycle reboot. And how that works is you're going to remove all the chips that are currently in the burn cycle and return them to the supply. You also would remove any chips that you might have in your reserves as well, but we don't have any. We did use those. All right, so now, like sort of with the early game setup, you grab the captain chip and then enough general action chips to fill it out. So we have 4 slots currently unlocked. So we get the 1, and you would put them in the bag and draw them out as normal. But we're going to also sort of follow along with how it's dictated in the tutorial. So it looks like we're going to have a general, 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 and then ending with that captain chip. All right, after that, we're going to generate our own reserves. So as opposed to when we started where our team reserve was based on what we got on the outside, this is going to come down to what rooms we're in. So any room that has at least one bot is going to contribute that corresponding chip to the team reserve. So if we look here, we have the utility, which is going to grant a utility chip. We also have the storage room, which is going to grant a utility chip. The service elevator does not have any chips to grant. So we were just going to get 2 utility chips added to the team reserve. Now we're going to get our personal reserves. So Byte, once again, is going to have a physical and a utility, and Access is going to have a utility and a tech. All right, the last thing that happens when you reboot a Burncycle is you are going to advance threat by player count. So threat's going to go up by 2, and that's going to trigger remote spin down. And that is going to deactivate the first Burncycle slot. So this not only gets degraded, it completely gets deactivated. So we remove the peg, we remove the chip. The only way we can get that back is then if we reroute power to our command module to purchase this once again. All right, but at the very least now we have a better looking Burncycle. We have chips in our reserve, so we can go ahead and keep moving forward. Okay, so for the rest of Byte's turn, we're going to start, of course, by getting our dice. So we have 4 basic, 2 advanced, and 1 elite. So, well, we definitely want to make sure we can get Bit out of that storage room. So I'm thinking what we're going to want to do is take a strike action to try and break down a wall. So in order to break down a wall, you need to get 10 action points or more. You can obviously optimize this, but we're not going to optimize this at the moment. I think we have enough dice to try and go for it. So we're going to roll our 1 elite die, our 2 advanced, and we want some for movement, so we're going to save 2. So we're going to roll 2 basic action dice. So let's go ahead and give these all a big roll. All right, so we got I got a 3, a couple 2s, a blank. We can go ahead and use Tumble Magnet to up that blank to another 2. That's giving us 11, which is what we need to destroy that wall. So take one of these destroyed wall chips, place it there to mark where the wall was destroyed. Additionally, this does make noise, so you would become detected. However, Byte is already detected at the moment. So that is going to remain there. Okay, so that is our first action. We move to the next one here. We're going to go ahead and try and roll for some movement, see if we can't get Bit out of there, or maybe I think we can grab some of those pieces of equipment before we go. So we're going to roll our 2 basic dice here. All right, looks like we got a 2 and a 1. We, of course, can use that Tumble Magnet to up that to a total of 4. So first, we're going to move Byte down 1 just so that we have that space open. Bit does, of course, have swap, but we don't want Byte to then just end up in the storage room as well. So we'll open that up, and then we have 3 more. So let's move Bit up 1, 2, collecting the equipment there, and 3 ending there. So let's take a look at what we got here. It looks like we got ourselves a key. So like when Access got it, this is immediately discarded and gains a key chip from the supply. It's important to note that command modules can't normally use equipment or mods at all. They can carry them, but they can't actually use them. The one exception to this, though, is those keys. They can still use those during a move action to freely open up a locked door. All right, and then we'll progress the tracker. This is going to trigger the captain effect, which is all of the guards are going to move 1 space forward. So we have this hamster here. And sadly, that does mean this walker is going to move right into that room. So if we really try and think back a few turns when that originally happened, the walker, we could have, even if we still decided to stick with the walker, we could have had it move in such a way where it ended facing this way. If we had done that, then when it resolved this effect, it wouldn't have anywhere to move. But sadly, because we did have it end facing this direction, it is going to move 1 space further in. So a lot of things to think about when you are manipulating where the guards are moving, how they're moving, because you do have a little bit of say in their exact pathing. So not only is Access going to become detected, but Drain is going to trigger once again. So taking a look at our chips here, we're going to have Access discard her utility chip. All right, and then so for the rest of this action, we might as well go ahead and draw a network card for Byte. Maybe we can get some value from it. Looks like we got administrative privileges. Turn any one terminal into a mainframe terminal. So mainframe terminals are really nice because they reduce the action point cost all down to 0. But since we're trying to just get out of here and move to the next floor, we're probably not going to find much use for this, but that's okay. Okay, so we'll go ahead and hop on the network here. We have effectively 3 general chips when you include the captain one. So we're going to just move 1, 2, and then we'll move in since we would just hop on over purple there anyway. 3 to there. Okay, so lastly, we're going to roll the Burncycle die to degrade the Burncycle. And we got a 2, so we'll just go ahead and degrade that first chip there. All right, moving on to Access's turn here. Well, we're probably going to want to use that chip there, possibly to get some more network cards even. So let's go ahead and swap that with this tech chip here. All right, so go ahead and return that to the supply. And then we'll go ahead and, of course, build our dice pool. We got 5 basic action dice and 2 advanced dice there. All right, so we'll go ahead and take an optimized network action. Looks like we've got Dark Web Access Hub, reduced threat by 2. That could be really good. Let's go ahead and slot that there, and we're going to just roll everything for movement. Of course, we want to get Bit out of the storage room. We want to get access. I think that's going to be the best bet is that small elevator there, and because we have a key, we can just go ahead and freely open that door. So let's roll everything we got here. All right, so we got 3s, some 2s, some 1s, and some blanks. So if we, let's see, get those all totaled up, it looks like it's going to be for 9 movement. Well, let's start with moving access here first. So we're going to move 1, and that is going to stay behind there because that only has an awareness of 2. So we got 1, and then we're going to use that key to open up the door there. 2, 3, 4. 5, 6, 7, 8. And we do, of course, have 1 more that we could spend, but we're not in need of it. All right, and because we did have that 1 cash that Bit collected there, we'll draw equipment card, and we got ourselves Kung Fu Knower, which helps you get a lot of extra action points when taking a strike action. Of course, Bit can't use any of these equipment cards, but she can carry them, and we might be able to get her to trade it to one of our agents further in this game. Next one here, we got 2 general actions, so we're just going to go ahead and draw some network cards. So we'll draw 1 network card there, and then this is going to trigger the captain effect, which the only one who is able to move at the moment is this 1 walker. So it's going to move up to there. And we'll draw 1 more network card. Ooh, and we got ourselves a driver update, which allows us to draw a mod card. Those can be really good. They're effectively like permanent pieces of equipment. Or if you don't like them, you can always just convert them into power as well. All right, so with that, we will go ahead and hop into the network here. So looking at what we've got here, I think the first thing we're going to want to do is IP spoof. And let's go ahead and discard Internet of Walls to swap with this ping on the outer layer there. Don't worry, we will be coming back to make sure Access's hub is safe and we're not going to get banned from the network. So we did that as a free action, which means now we'll take our first chip in the Burncycle, which is a tech chip. And we're going to go right along into here to boot that ping. So Access will then reduce the network level by 1. And now we can go ahead and trigger driver update. So we're going to discard this to draw a mod card. It looks like we got ourselves a cannon arm, which is your agent may take strike actions on guards or walls that are up to 4 spaces away. So this starts uninstalled, and you can freely install it. But once you install it, you can't exchange it for the power. So sometimes it's good to wait to install it until you think you might get value from it. So we're going to leave it uninstalled for now. And let's see. So we still have 2 more general chips in the Burncycle. So we're going to go ahead and IP spoof 1 more time here. We're going to discard our last network card to swap with that ping on the outer layer to keep Access's access point nice and safe. And then we'll just move one spot there and one spot there. All right, and so that is going to conclude Access's turn. Don't have any reason to spend any more power at the moment. We are going to just have to degrade that burn cycle one last time. So we'll go ahead and grab the burn cycle die, give it a roll. Looks like we got one that we can choose. So we're going to go ahead and degrade that captain chip. Nice to not have to worry about that extra movement. Now, because a turn is ending and we have completed our floor objective and we are all in safe zones, this is where we can then immediately end the floor and move to the next floor. We actually get to skip the corporation's turn here. And then as we go on to the next floor, we'll get a whole nother chance to do a round before security gets to go again. But yeah, so that is the full floor 1 walkthrough tutorial. Hope you were able to pick up a lot on how the systems work. A lot of things that might not be super obvious, like especially things like manipulating where the guards move. And hope you can take what you learned here and apply it to your own adventures. Obviously, if you want to keep going and do floors 2 and 3 with this current team, with this current setup, you can absolutely pick up where we are leaving off. Or if you want to take what you learned here, take it to a new adventure, try out some new bots, try out against a new captain, new corporation. Hopefully you were able to pick up some things that you can apply there. But that will do it for this video. Thanks so much for watching, and take care.